Hello, I'm Eugene Marshall of Arcanist Press and Sigil Entertainment, and this is Sigil Spotlight. We're a diverse community of tabletop industry creators spotlighting each other's work. This session, we're featuring a D&D adventure titled From Every Winter's Spring, a tale of rebirth and rejuvenation by Connor Self, our own Connor Self here. It's a community-created content title for D&D Adventures League, and correct me if I'm wrong, it should be on sale starting next week, is that right?
Yep. Should be on sale starting next week. This is actually the world premiere of the adventure. Nobody else has seen this until now.
Well, that is very exciting. So this will be the first time that From Every Winter Spring gets viewed in public, or whatever this counts as. And after it appears for sale, I suppose also it's going to be at a charity gaming convention called Maydays Tenday, running from May 8th to May 18th. And I've put a link in the notes below the Twitter stream or Twitch stream here that will link you to Mayday 10-Day. So if you want to do an online charity gaming convention, 10 days of gaming for charity, go ahead and follow that link and maybe even sign up for Connor's game if that's something. Can people sign up for your game? Is that how it works?
Absolutely. And I might even be running it, but I'll be really sneaky. You might not know it's me until I just show up in the room and I'm like, hey, I wrote this, let's play.
You won't know it's him because he'll be in cosplay again, right? Like he is today.
Probably not if I'm DMing. That's just too much.
That's one step above. Yeah, you'll notice I'm just, in my Pride D&D shirt. That's all I got going.
I love the Pride D&D shirt though, so much.
Here, I'll represent. All right, so enough on that. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Sigil Entertainment for supporting the stream and providing our graphics and overlays, Roll20 for providing us the virtual tabletop, and Wizards of the Coast for providing the fan creation license that lets us use some of their content on the stream. Now, to make sure we all have fun, we are employing safety tools. So thanks to Bree Bo Sheldon, Lauren Bryant Monk, Kiana Shaw, and Monty Cook Games for providing the tools we're using. If you look down again below the Twitch stream, there's some links to some of that content. Now I'd like to get to know our players and characters. So as I said, I'm Eugene Marshall. My pronouns are he, they, or they. I'm co-owner of Arcanist Press and a game designer for Sigil Entertainment. I'm your GM today. So let's go ahead and go around the table, and I'd like to hear a little bit about you and your pronouns, and then tell us about your character today. Let's go ahead and start with Vic.
Hi, my name's Vic Harris. I go by VJ Harris on the DMs Guild. My pronouns are they, them, and he, him. Mostly just new to the industry, getting into adventure and supplement writing, and I do like creative writing. Outside of that, I'm a big I love graphic novels, and I've been trying to work on a graphic novel script for like years, and I'm slowly making my way through that. But today I will be playing Dirk, the Warforged Grave Cleric, and he is if he had to have a catchphrase, it'd be, I like to put things on the ground, or I like to bury things in the ground.
I was to say, or on or in, right?
In the ground, and he's got less, like, not the normal like background you might associate with a cleric. He's a previous life in smuggling illicit goods, never people. Feels that's very has a good time putting people that do that in the ground. But yeah, and he's just here for an adventure.
Well, I can't wait to meet Dirk. So let's go ahead and go to Ish. Would you like to introduce yourself and your character?
Yes, Ismael Alvarez, aka Ish, aka Lorthorn, aka Elven Wizard King. So I do some writing for Dungeons and Dragons primarily. You might find my stuff on Fat Goblin Games. Today I will be playing Anthamina once again, the strict, no-nonsense apothecary, a class of my own devising, that is part alchemist, part kind of hedge wizard. Anthamina is very by the book in every sense, and she wanted to be a part of the guard, but basically got rejected and now is a private investigator because that is what she thinks she is suited for.
And just to remind everyone, and I'll need to change the show note below to include it. The Apothecary class at Ish is playing today is available in 5th edition horror on Drive-Thru RPG. Correct?
Correct, and
Awesome.
it is part of a bundle right now.
Oh, it's a bundle. Well, go get yourself some bundled joy right there. All right. Well, we end with last but not least our game designer today, Connor. Tell us about yourself and your character.
My name is Connor Self. My pronouns are he, him, and I will be joining you today, reprising yet again Sildaris, the Furbolg Ranger, bashful, shy, and lovable. Slow to attack, quick to hug. That's how I roll, and I look forward to enjoying the adventure from this side of the table and seeing how it looks from a player's perspective.
Well, I hope it do it justice. So let's see. All right, well, let's go ahead and begin. I will switch us over to the character screen so that we can all see our characters, the characters' names up there. All right. So our adventure begins in the town of Elventree, which is in the Forgotten Realms, near the town, another town you may have heard of called Hillsfar. Now, Hillsfar, until recently, had been a kind of controversial location because there had been some xenophobic laws in place, and Elventree had been a haven for all who wished to flee or leave Hillsfar. And both of these towns are near the great forest of the Cormanthor, which is now where the interior of the North Sword Coast, many miles east of places like you might have heard of, like Waterdeep and Neverwinter. Now, our three adventurers, Anthemina, Dirk, and Sildaris, we're going to say, for whatever reason, have come together because there's a job. And now it might be that you each have your own reasons. It might be that you've heard about this job and you want the coin involved because there is cash reward. A man named Calvin Shepard has put out requests for adventurers to help him in a task. But perhaps you hear a little bit more about his story. You hear that he's an elderly man who wants to take a trip to a religious site kind of at the end of his years, and you think that would be a kindness, and so you're willing to do it for that reason, perhaps. Or perhaps you hear that this elven religious site is just a moment, I got a strange message that suggests this isn't streaming. Sure looks like we are.
That's odd. I am on on Twitch, and it looks like we're streaming.
Yeah.
As am I.
Yeah. Okay, well, somebody just sent me oh no, you're not streaming, but I think they are the ones that are having some problems. So pardon that little hiccup. I would hate to have had all of my lovely players introduce themselves and their characters and not be heard by the audience out there. So I'm glad to hear that it has been. And so I was introducing a little bit of the location, right? We're looking at Elventree. It's near the great forest of Cormanthor, for whether it's for coin or to aid, or because you're interested in learning more about this alleged ancient elvish site, because if you're of a more kind of intellectual mindset, you might have learned that these ancient elven sites in the Cormanthor are sometimes called mythals, and they are ancient lost magics. And whether this is one of such place or not is unknown, but the very possibility would definitely tantalize those of that persuasion. So whatever your reasons are, those are what might bring you to Calvin Shepard. So as you arrive at his humble abode, it's a quaint cottage in the town of Elventree. Let's hear just a little bit about what each of you look like as you arrive, and maybe if any of those reasons appealed to your characters in particular, to tell us why that might be. So let's go ahead and hear from Anthemina first. Why might Anthemina have taken this job?
Anthemina is always interested in history due to the fact that there's much to be plumbed there. And as history has a tendency to repeat itself, she's always interested in finding ways of using that information to her advantage. She also, in her youth, was a little bit of an enthusiast in elven culture, and there's just tiny bit of a trace of that left.
Excellent. So, and how does Anthemina present? Like, can you describe what she might be wearing or her appearance?
Anthamina is an inveterate private investigator wearing the same overcoat, the same, more or less the same like 3 outfits on cycle. And so she's probably just picked the brightest one, which is like a navy blue, or something like that.
All right, excellent.
Nothing too fancy. Probably like big jack boots and just extremely pragmatic clothing.
Practically, she's got her apothecary's kit with her, etc.
Yes.
All right, so let's hear about Dirk. What does Dirk look like, Warforged?
Yeah, I don't know how many people have watched Bionicle, but I kind of imagine
Yep.
there's these new Warforged that came out. I think they're like Bionicle based, and I was like, man, I'd love to play one that at least looked like that. And it's on the DM's Guild, and I'm like, not like the little tiny ones, but like the full grown up ones that have like their weapons and stuff. So like, my chest looks like my scale mail armor, but the rest of me is more like exposed parts, kind of the way C3PO is, and then like a mask for my actually on my face, and the back of it's more like my intricate bits.
So this looks like electronic almost more than like mechanical, right? Is that the vibe I'm getting? Not like big steampunk gears here.
No, no more. I guess I didn't describe that well enough. Then more like cogs and like
wires, cogs, pulleys.
Yeah, cogs, wires, pulleys, and like some like organic parts, like pieces of wood or like more like viney things.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so that's awesome. So do you wear? I mean, you've got armor built in. You come clothed, so to speak. But do you wear a jacket or anything like gloves or boots or anything like that?
I wear pants and a shirt when we're first coming into like a town, if it involves like a mission or something, a quest or whatnot. But then after I've gotten the quest, I'm just back into my trying to blend in so nobody's too freaked out so I can get a job. But then once I get the job, I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. And I'm here for the money and the potential plunder.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got the Warforged Dirk has showed up. Since this is taking a job, I think he would be maybe wearing his jacket or his nice shirt, the one nice shirt he has that he wears for job applications, job interviews. He pulls that out, right? I think we all know what that's like. All right, so Sildaris, what is Sildaris looking like? And what brought Dirk to this? The money, a chance to help.
Definitely the money. Potentially plundering the ancient ruins, because you never know who might have been searching for something that I could get out of there and sell.
Fair. So all right. So what about Sildaris? What brings Sildaris to Calvin Shepherd's door, and how does he appear today?
Well, Sildaris knows where Calvin lives. Elventree isn't too far from where Sildaris grew up. Sildaris is from the Cormanthor Forest, deep within. That's where his people live, a reclusive, hidden, and pretty much invisible lifestyle. So he knows about Elventree. He's been through Elventree a few times. If his people ever needed somebody to go into town to trade, he would put on Sildaris would put on his human guys and go in. So Sildaris's human guys, his glamour is that of a 6.5 foot tall, older teenage human boy of what appears to be Scandinavian descent. Not too different from this. Very simple clothes, a blousy shirt, practical for wearing in the woods and doing heavy work. His hands definitely show experience working. He's never separated from a giant red woodsman's axe, appropriately sized for him. That's just Sildaris's glamour, though. In fact, he's an 8 foot tall, hulking blue giant with doe eyes and very expressive, droopy ears that sort of remind you of a cow's. Blue skin with pink tips, but the guys helps him, in towns where people don't always understand or respect his people. 8-foot tall blue giants aren't usually trusted in most places, especially when they're very rare. Sildaris is definitely here because he heard there was an old man that he interacted with, Calvin, who was always kind to the people in town, to the children, who always shared stories and the like. His health has been suffering, and he wants to make his way to this religious site. And Sildaris doesn't care about the money. He'd just say, give the money, keep the money. But he knows he can get this old man safely to wherever he's got to get in the woods. The Cormanthor is a very, very dangerous place, especially for men in their 70s or 80s.
So the three of you arrive at the door. You're all already acquainted. Know you're taking this job together. Calvin greets you at the door, and as you arrive, you find the door opens, and you see this kind of older individual, an old human man in his 70s or 80s, and he welcomes you in. Thank you for coming. I was hoping that you would be able to I'll get right down to the business here. I was hoping you'd be able to take me to an elven religious site in the Cormanthor. It's not far, just a few hours travel probably, but someone of my age, I don't believe it would be safe for me to go alone, and I could fall, and I would be very grateful if you young people could help get me to this location. I don't have many more moons before me, and so this might be my last chance to visit this place. Is that something you'd be willing to do?
I can only speak for myself, but that is fine. Are there any issues that we may need to know of? Perhaps any dangers that we will be facing in our path?
Well, I don't know of any dangers besides those that the forest itself contains, animals and the like, difficult trees and roots and rocks to navigate, but beyond that, I don't expect any threats of any sort. My main concern is one of time, in fact. You see, tomorrow night is the last of the harvest moon, and the tales, an old half-elven friend of mine told me the tale that this site is only visitable or findable or viewable under the light of a harvest moon, and I fear I won't make the next harvest.
Very well. Again, I only speak for myself. What say the rest of you?
How much are you paying?
Oh, I'm paying a very healthy amount. I assure you I will pay each of you handsomely with 100 gold pieces.
I'm in.
Excellent, young, old, sir, yes, person. So, I love that laugh. All right. Calvin basically says that he'd be willing to start out, on the morning, see if he can't if you guys can't get him in. But he says, but if you're willing to stay a while, I'm happy to make you tea. I have some cake. It's not, the trip shouldn't be long. It is just south of Elventree. They say it was commemorated to a forgotten elvish deity. There's a spring there. I'd love to see it under the light of the moon. If that's really all I am looking for. Nothing more complicated than that, I assure you.
Very well. I do not have any issue with this. How soon can we get going?
Well, I would like to have my tea, but I suppose we could leave fairly soon. Is this something that you would be able to leave immediately?
Yes, although I don't see why we should waste perfectly good tea.
Very well. Let me get you some cakes. And he turns around and he starts to walk, and you can see as he stands, he's kind of frail, right? And he stands and does one of those. His arms shake as he kind of slowly lifts himself out of the chair.
Sildaris will rush up to help him up.
Oh, thank you, young man. Oh my, you're quite strong for your scrawny size. I remember when I was gosh, it seems so long ago. Was I ever as young as you? I don't think so.
Are you gonna need to be carried into the forest? Can you?
I hope not to be needed to be carried just yet. I can walk. It just takes me a moment to, shall we say, find my footing.
And once Sildaris has helped him up, he's a little wobbly, but he makes it okay on his way into his little kitchen. And so you're in this little. It's quite lovely, this little cottage. You can tell he's been here for many years, maybe decades. There's a lovely hearth, well cleaned, decorated, all kinds of little items that maybe perhaps once had meaning to someone here and there. But they look like, though the place is relatively clean, it looks like none of these sentimental items have been, they kind of have some dust on them, like they probably haven't been appreciated lately. He emerges from the kitchen, and it has a plate with some small slices of cake on it for each of you, and he hands one to Sildaris, "Thank you, son," and one to Anthemina, "Thank you, miss." And then he hands one to Dirk. Do you like cake?
I don't know. Depends on the kind of cake.
Oh, well, this is it was my wife's recipe. She passed many years ago. Yes, it's been hard living without her since then. I remember her funeral and the time thereafter. But anyway, I digress. This is, it's quite good, if I did it any justice. Sarah, she was quite the baker, actually. I pale in comparison. But just try it. These are from apples from the tree, not far. It's an apple cake.
I pick up the whole cake and just shove it, the whole slice, into my mouth.
Do you think Dirk likes apple cake?
I don't know. Let's find out. Huh. It's tasty.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
What dead things help the apple tree grow?
What, oh, you mean, what, fertilizer? It's in the grove just behind the homes here. It's, I suppose, the leaves and small animals of some sort may have died. I didn't tend to the trees. Although Sarah used to walk amongst them, didn't she? I can't. It's been so long.
I taste fox. It's a little hint of fox.
Fox.
Little hint of a fox.
Oh my. I don't think I've ever tasted fox in my pie before, or cakes before. That's very... You have a, what's the word, a sophisticated palate.
Yes.
So, you finish, you have your cake, and eat it too.
Sildaris would like to ask Calvin a few questions.
All right. Hold on just a minute. We've just dropped Ish. Ismael, I heard him kind of... I saw his video stop moving, so hopefully he's back momentarily, and then I might have to do a quick Zoom rearrange. But let's go ahead. Oh, here he's already coming back. Let's see if he ends up in the right spot. So he ended up. You guys just played musical Zoom, so just feel free to go ahead and ask your questions. And welcome back, Ish.
Welcome back.
Ooh. Sorry, guys.
Isn't technology lovely?
Isn't it?
Oh, yes.
So go ahead, and I'm going to just move you guys around very quickly. Don't mind me. There, and we're back to normal. All right, so go ahead. Sildaris was about to ask a question.
Yeah. I'm gonna have my mouth stuffed full of cake. Dirt gave the official "it's good," even if it tastes like fox. Cake's cake. So I'll be stuffing my mouth full of cake, and I'll say. So Calvin, I got a question for you. You're looking after a shrine for an elven god?
Oh, I wouldn't say I'm looking after it as much as would like to visit it. I've never been there, actually. It's something that my friend told me. He's the elderly half-elven gentleman, and he heard it from his elven side of the family. It's a tale of some of an ancient myth. What do you would like to know about it? I could tell you more, I suppose. Some of the stories are rather far-fetched, but was there something specific? I doubt you'd really want to hear them. They're, like I said, they're rather old, as my old Sarah used to say, old husband's tales.
I can't help but notice that your ears aren't very pointy.
Oh.
I'm guessing that a person of shorter years of human descent, such as yourself, wouldn't be looking after going after. Sorry, my archaic speech. Wouldn't be going after a elvish religious site.
Well,
Why wouldn't you be visiting the temple? There's a temple right in the middle of town. We can walk you right over there.
Oh, yes, I've been to the temple many times. Well, you see, I suppose I should tell you the myth I have heard of this place, which I will admit is one of my... Very well, it is my reason for wanting to visit it. It is not just that I had heard it was lovely in the moonlight, but that according to the family lore of my neighbor, the half-elf, at least the elven side of his family, reports that this temple once was a place of worship of a lost and forgotten elven goddess, and it is said that a magical pool appears in the harvest moon, and should one gaze into this pool and drink, one's youth is restored. Now, I know that's probably poppycock, and you might not believe it, but I feel as though I am not ready to go. Maybe it's living a life among many of the elves and my friends, the half-elves as well, but I feel as though I've just lived the past few decades alone, and I'm just not ready to let go yet. I was hoping this place, this magical location, whatever it is, might give me another chance. Or if you prefer, you can just chalk it up to the tales of a foolish old man and take the gold and bring me to this place, and I will see it for myself, and that is the best I can do.
If the weirdest thing that you're going to be taking us to is if what you're saying is that it is just a fountain of youth or something like that, well, I've seen far weirder lately, so this is doable. We've seen much weirder, haven't we, Antamina?
Regrettably.
That is Antamina for yes, we have.
Yes, I followed that. Yes, well, I'm very grateful that you're willing to put up with my tales and willing to humor me. I mean, it would... being young again, look at you strapping young lads. It would be wonderful to be that way again, I suppose, to feel youth. I need to feel alive again. It's been so long. Anyway, it looks as though you've consumed all my cake. If you wish, I suppose we could depart.
Let's do.
All right.
Look at my hands. They're sticky. I lick the fingers.
I do
wipe the rest of my pants.
Yeah, Calvin slides into just a somewhat parental tone of voice and says,
"Oh, here, I have napkins, just let me get something for you. There's no reason to dirty you." "Oh, very well."
It's a waste. No, it's okay.
He kind of looks you up and down and says, "Yes, I imagine so. Very well." And so then he kind of puts on an overcoat. It's not particularly cool out or anything, but he puts on an overcoat. He grabs a little pack, and he walks over slowly by the hearth where an old, well-worn, kind of polished, gnarled wooden stick leans and picks it up to kind of help him on the walk. And he says, "All right, I am ready to go."
While he's getting ready for that, I turn to the others. Did you taste the fox?
I do not believe that my palate is refined enough. I, for my part, do not care for sweets very much, so It all tastes like fox in a roundabout way of speaking.
Anthamine is really proper. I didn't hardly taste it. I ate it too fast. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, Calvin directs you out of the house, and as you leave, he closes the door and he kind of stops and looks up. Before he closes it, he looks around the house and kind of droops a little bit, and closes the door and says, "All right, well, let's head out. It's this way." And he begins to lead you down a path that is to the south, exits the south of Elventree, and you get the impression that you'll probably be, arriving in the forests very soon. And in fact you do, but it looks like there's no formal path there, right? He points out and says, I was given directions, but I think we kind of have to find our own way. It's going to be this way. And he gestures down what is basically a deer path, like a deer run, right? So you're going to have to kind of navigate through the Cormanthor. And as you see, if you hadn't, Sildaris would know like the back of his hand. And I'm sure Anthamina has read about it if she's not visited it. And Dirk, you might be familiar too, but the Cormanthor is this kind of like primordial forest. It's this great giant forest that's thick with growth and known for being kind of a dark and mysterious place. It's not haunted or anything exactly, but it has a great history, and it's it'll be a challenge to get through it. So as you enter the forest, the temperature drops just from being within, and it's evening, and so his goal, or it's afternoon, I should say. His desire was to try to get through to the place before the moon sets late tonight. And when you enter, it's almost as though dusk had suddenly fallen, because the canopy above is so heavy that it blocks out almost all sunlight. There's also kind of a cool mist in the air. It's more humid underneath the canopy. Everything is green, and the sounds of insects and frogs and birds, you occasionally kind of echo throughout the area. So this is actually not easy going. So what I'll ask is for people to make. So how would this go? How about I ask you. You're moving through the forest. Who is going to be, let's say, trailblazing? Going first.
Being the party ranger, Silvaris would very likely would try to take the front. He would have one arm on his axe, but the other he'd make sure that he was had Calvin on his arm, and that way nobody's outpacing Calvin or leaving Calvin behind if we keep Calvin near the front. And me holding him will help him keep him from tripping or falling.
All right, so let's go ahead and have Sildaris make a wisdom survival check to see how well he navigates the challenging woods.
Right. First thing I'd like to share, hopefully that comes up.
Natural Explorer Forest. Okay, so this is your favored terrain.
Mm-hmm.
I believe... Oh, I should know this. Advantage? Or you can't get lost magically.
I can't get lost magically, no.
Except for magically, it's just naturally. You cannot get lost unless there's magic involved. Well, gosh, I guess go ahead and make the roll. You won't get lost. But this will determine maybe how quickly you move through it. You can have advantage on it. All right. So, yeah, you're just very relaxed, let's say, and you're able to find your way without too much trouble. But as you're doing it, however, you're following as one of those deer runs, and then it kind of comes into a clearing, right? So you've been traveling for an hour or two, kind of winding your way through these sorts of places. And you drop down into a hollow, and then you come out into a little bit of a clearing where the canopy finally breaks, and there's some sunlight trickling in. Now you can tell it's getting on to evening. But in front of you, there is a small kind of babbling brook that kind of cuts through this clearing. And at the brook is a doe and her fawn sipping water. But then out of the forest from the other side, you see wolves emerging, circling around, and the doe doesn't notice at first. And then only when the doe finally looks up, the wolves have almost fully surrounded the doe and the fawn. What would you like to do?
Soldaris turns back to the other two with the eyes that you've become used to that say, "What do we do now?"
We let it die. All things have a cycle. Death is important.
I'm afraid that that's a very good point. We shouldn't necessarily interfere with nature as it's happening.
So, how does Soldaris feel about that?
Soldaris is comfortable with the circle. He wasn't certain. Well, Dirk, being a grave cleric, probably is familiar that animals do die to feed other animals. Anthamina, being a prim and proper urban woman, can't muster sweets. That would be too undignified. He was a little. Soldaris was a little bit more worried about her. If she seems okay with it, then the best course of action might be, and I'll just look and I'll say, well, you both speak wisdom. Perhaps we should just surround Calvin and make sure that he doesn't experience any of the worst of the wolves too.
Yes, I don't sense any malfeasance here.
Right, and Anthamina, of course, having the kind of medical training as an apothecary that she's had seen, can kind of take a dispassionate sort of medical approach towards what's the kind of phenomenon that's occurring. Calvin, on the other hand, is kind of distracted. He kind of leans against a tree.
What's going on? Is there? Oh, I see wolves. We should be careful. They can be dangerous. I remember once my son still lived with me long ago, before he left. And he told me a great tale. This is Ebbins, my son, of encountering wolves in the wood and chasing them off. But this is the way of nature, I suppose.
And indeed, nature does what nature is going to do, and the cycle of life and death occurs in the clearing. Some creatures lived today and ate and survived and thrived. Others did not, just as it is the case every day in the Cormanthor. After the scene finishes, the wolves have little interest in any of you. Much more dangerous game you are for them than the doe. So the wolves leave the scene, and you are able to proceed further. Another hour passes, and the woods become dark and twisting. The roots, overgrown, deadfall, blocks your path repeatedly. Go ahead and give us another roll, please, Soldaris. Although, again, with advantage, and you really aren't going to you certainly won't get lost. But in fact, this is less about you finding your way as it is helping guide Calvin, right, through all of these obstacles to find the easiest way for him to travel. He's not going to be able to bound over a deadfall of a great tree like you can.
Most certainly wouldn't.
Yes, with aplomb, you navigate the area and avoid the worst of the obstacles. And as you're walking, in fact, it's so pleasant that Calvin's kind of able to chat. And he says,
seeing those wolves reminded me of the day my son left, moved away to join his bee in Hillsfar, where they have running some sort of orphanage. I haven't heard from them in quite a while. I've been alone for so long. It's been hard, not losing my wife and my children and my human friends growing old, dying.
Did you do something? Did you do something to make him leave and not continue to communicate?
Well, I mean, we still speak. We're in, we did not have any kind of falling out. He is very busy helping those who have fled the great law of humanity in Hillsfar. The orphanage he set up for children displaced by the law has been doing great work, and I would never want to take him away from that. I am proud of the work he's doing there, but... And if you've been around, wouldn't have heard about this, that Hillsfar has this, it's now recently ended, but for a long time they had a kind of xenophobic political policy about humans, kind of a humans-only policy, right? But they put it into place, and then all of these people that were not human, or that were not fully human, had to leave, or be living under unjust circumstances. So some people, however, helped out, and apparently Ebbins and B, I should say, were his wife were helping. So they set up a farm, as he goes on to explain, outside of Hillsfar, where they helped these people. And they apparently have still been trying to relocate these people and find new homes for them. Even after the Great Law of Humanity ended, some of them didn't want to return to Hillsfar, right? For obvious reasons. So Calvin is not, gives you the impression that he's not estranged from his son, but the son is busy and isn't around as much as he was when he lived in the Elven Tree, right? That sort of thing. But you do get the impression that Calvin is a bit morose about this and sad. And he also reports, about his friends having passed, and his body aches just all the time. And but around that time, you hear the crash of thunder in the sky, and glimpsing through the trees, you see a storm brewing on the horizon, and it looks like to be a big one. Now, above you, currently, you see the stars beginning to come out, and the harvest moon is at its peak, starting to dip towards the horizon. You've got a few more hours for sure, but and so you are guessing, based on what Calvin has said, that you'll arrive no problem at this place before the moon is set. But the storm could be a threat, right? This could be a problem, because if the storm blows in the next hour or two, it will block out the light entirely. And if Calvin is right that this magical fountain of youth only works in the light of the harvest moon, then you'll miss the window of opportunity, if there is one. So he is kind of becoming agitated, and his kind of fixating on this kind of negative experiences he's been having lately. And he's like, no, now the storm is coming, and we might not even make it, and I will not have enough time to connect again with my son and to visit my wife's grave. And what a
We'll
terrible
get there.
thing.
Even if I have to carry you and run through the trees, we'll get there.
Do not worry, we will see this job through.
Very well.
Just focus on your walking and don't worry about the other. We focus, one step in front of the other step. It's getting dark. Does anybody have any light?
Yeah, we have 4 people without dark vision here.
Wait, Warforged don't have dark vision.
I know, without dark vision, yeah. And
Yeah.
wait, do furbolgs? They don't have it either, do they?
No, they don't.
So, and humans don't, and Calvin's human. So.
Again.
So if nobody has any other way to produce light,
I have a torch.
a torch
Light
it is.
a torch as well, yeah.
Yep. So let's light some torches. It's much safer. So we'll have to stop to light the torches, and as I'm trying to light the torch and being very, very careful not to catch anything else on fire in so doing, I'm just going to tell tales that lighten the mood. Because Calvin is becoming very reticent, and the more reticent he becomes, it seems like the more saddened he becomes. So, my family told me many, many stories about the Cormanthor. I grew up here, actually. My family, they are homesteaders here in Cormanthor. We chopped wood and we sold it in the Elven Tree. The trees it's very ancient. You know the Cormanthor is a magical forest, don't you?
Well, I certainly hope so. That's what the stories I had been told, is...
Yeah. The old woods, they are very special. They're the old woods. The trees, they are ancient. They are as old as Toril itself. The stories tell, and you have to be very careful to follow the paths, because if you don't follow the paths, the trees move.
Oh my! And he looks around like, are they? They don't seem to be. Oh, I did not know that. So my friends, Elven Tree has a tradition, of sharing culture with the humans, the elves, telling tales, and I would enjoy it many times, hearing my friends report the tales of ancient elven culture. But that is one I had never heard.
They never told you the trees move.
Well, I knew that it was magical and that people could get lost easily, which is one reason why, of course, I hired all of you. But you seem quite capable, I must say.
Well, the trees are really brilliant. If you listen to them, then you'll know the stories they tell. But they don't stay in one place. They move, mostly because they just get bored in one spot and they want to talk to the other trees. You know how it goes, right?
Oh, well, I suppose if I were a tree, I might feel the same way. Although it does feel as though I've been rooted in that home alone for many years, so perhaps...
Well, it's a good thing that you got up and went for a walk, then.
Exactly.
Let's go see some new trees.
So, as you head further in, you arrive at the kind of trees. The ground becomes more wet and marshy for a little while, and a kind of soggy region of the forest you arrive at. It becomes more humid, and you arrive at kind of a fen, like a boggy area. And the trees clear out a little bit. It looks as though, in fact, some trees have been chopped down, and you arrive at this soggy patch of land with 3 huts made of branches and thatch. Right, so like wood and straw, and mud, kind of packed. And there's a campfire in the center of it. And sitting at the campfire is, there's almost nothing else here. 3 thatch huts and a fire, and there is a fog here. So like as you've been heading into this moisture area, the fog or swirling around your feet and knees is thicker. And it's kind of playing tricks. You got the moon shining down through the dappled light making of the leaves. Fog is swirling around in the wind, so sometimes, you get out of the corner of your eyes, it looks like there's a person standing there, and you look, and it's just the fog is kind of billowing around. But you arrive in this place, and sitting around the fire is one individual. Let's see if I can get... looks like an old woman. She looks like this. And she looks up when you arrive, and kind of smiles, and she's missing a lot of, most of her teeth, and she puts a kind of bony... gnarled hand up, and she says, "Oh, welcome, travelers. Come by the fire and warm yourself." So yeah, what would you like to do? The huts are tiny. They look poorly built.
I kind of lean into the others. Do we have time to stop? Do we stop?
Would you like to try and gauge how much time you have?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes? What does Anthamina say?
I was just going to say Anthamina just goes and sits by the fire. She doesn't make any issue with it.
Right. So go ahead and make a nature check, Dirk, if you'd like to try and gauge how much time we have before the storm rolls in. And to help answer that question, why don't you make a third and final roll, Sildaris, for survival? See how well, what kind of time you've been making as you've traveled this last leg of the trip. All right. So Sildaris has gotten you where you need to go quickly. You think that it's not much more than an hour further, and the storm will not arrive before then. So you're pretty confident, actually, that you've made good time, and you have... 10 minutes sitting by the fire, it won't make a difference. And in fact, Calvin looks like he could really use a moment to sit. It's been a hard walk for, a half a day for him through these woods. So he kind of gratefully hobbles over and, "Oh, thank you, my dear." And she says, "Yes, please sit. I am Agatha. I'm Agatha Bordock. Please welcome. Sit at my fire. Tell me, what brings you this deep into the Cormanthor?"
We're on a pilgrimage.
Oh.
Oh, fascinating. And Calvin kind of nods.
Yes, that's right.
We're protecting him. And I just...
So fascinating, she says. So, what and where to what site is your pilgrimage? Calvin kind of shrugs and says,
Well, I've heard tales of an ancient elven shrine not far from here.
Ah, yes, I know the place. And she looks up and says, And I see that you have time yet. The harvest moon shines brightly above. I've heard those tales as well. I can tell you more of the place if you wish.
No offense, but if you've heard the tales, why aren't you making your way there yourself? You look like you could use the Fountain of Youth.
Oh,
And Tamina looks over to Soldaris and says, That's not very nice to say.
I'm laughing.
she says, Oh, look at you, the young one. The one who appears young, at least. I see you, big boy. Now listen up, young'un. Some of us like the way we are. This is my form that I welcome, and it is my lot to be this way, and I accept that. It would do you well to accept your true form as well, young one. She's looking at you, Soldaris. And she says, But if you do not wish to know of your destination very well, I ask a very simple price. All I wish is to hear a story. To give, perhaps if you were to grant me a trivial object of your own. Something that is connected to a story you could tell me. I collect stories, you see, I'm alone here. Sometimes my sisters visit, but for now, it is just me with my stories. Please, share a story. Give me an item to remember it when you leave. So she says she's going to give you information about this site in exchange for an item that you give her, any item. It could be anything as trivial as you like, but it has to be connected to some story that's meaningful to you, or your character, of course, from your life. So is anybody interested in buying some information with an item and a story?
What do I have on me? Jesus. You know? Oh, I need that.
And Tamina takes a used vial. It's just one of her empties that she had. And she says, This was a vial that I purchased in Neverwinter. I had to pay a premium on it due to the fact that it was made by a famous glassblower. In fact, there's a little design on there. I didn't want to pay the extra, but it was apparently the only one they had left. That's my story. And she just hands the vial over.
She looks at it and considers it for a moment, looks up and says, And these vials, they are meaningful to you, yes. It seems to be this is related to your profession in some way.
They do, in fact, serve a purpose.
Fascinating. And what about you, constructed one?
I have this mace.
Oh, well, I'd hate to rob you of something you need, but if you're willing to part with it, very well.
Oh, actually, I have this crossbow. And this has an interesting story because I like to, I find things and get them to places for people. And the first job I ever did doing that, it actually went really badly. I almost didn't get paid. And the only way I managed to get out of the situation is by shooting a crossbolt through 3 apples on top of 3 different people's heads as they bounce the apples up and down.
That's a remarkable story. Yes, very well. A crossbow. I can't say I've ever used one, but that's very interesting. And she sets it aside and says, And what about you, young, shall we say, human boy? What would you like to share with me, if anything, for a story, information about your destination?
So real quick, before Sildaris opens his mouth again, because I didn't realize what was going on for a second. Okay. Is this woman perhaps an ancient woman of the wood? And not just an ancient woman in the wood?
So go ahead and make let's call that a nature check, I suppose. Or I mean, you tell me what would. So it's if the favorite enemy gives you its intelligence and wisdom, like intelligence. What is it? History and survival checks, basically, about these creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So make a history check with advantage, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless you think survival would be more apt here. I'm happy.
No. If it is, then nature would be the appropriate skill, and I am trained in it. So
sure.
I don't know how I'm going to do.
22.
My suspicion is that's what's going on. That she's an ancient woman of the wood instead of an ancient woman in the wood, and that might change the way I talk to her, as evidenced last week.
So 22. Yeah. So you get the impression that this. So A, there are 3 huts. You've heard tales of these ancient women of the woods forming covens of 3. B, what is anybody doing out here living in a mud hut with nothing around except this? That's unnatural. That's unusual. C, collecting memories and stories is not something that sounds like a very fey activity to you. D, she seemed to be quite adept at seeing through your disguise. That implies she has some facility with magic, or at least in resisting magical effects, let's say. So you put these all together and you're like, aha, yep. You suspect yes.
Right. So out of deference, Sildaris will drop the glamour and appear in the true form.
There you are, my dear.
Big boy.
And so it goes from lanky kid to very deer-like in appearance, right? The big doe eyes, the ears that sort of slope down, that are a little bit further down and back than they normally would be, because Sildaris is a little cowed by this situation, knowing perhaps a little bit better what's going on. Sildaris will give a bow. Even with the bow, he probably still stands over this woman pretty highly, and say, "I'm terribly sorry. I didn't know that we were stepping into your demesne. My name is Sildaris Springshoot of the Cormanthor."
Oh, yes, a fellow woods walker. I thought I recognized your kind. Welcome again. I'm merely Agatha Bordock. Nothing special here. But what I would love to know most of all is whether you're going to share a story with me.
I think it would be rude to step into your home and not share a story.
You are right.
So Sildaris will reach into a little pouch and he pulls out a necklace. And on the necklace, there are some canine teeth. They're not from a canine, they're actually from a feline. He removes, unlaces the end, removes one of the teeth, and you can see it, like when you stare at it, it like pulls your vision away from it. Like it looks like it's in his hand, but it looks like it's floating in the air. It's not, you can't put your eyes on it. And Sildaris will pass over the tooth and say, this is a tooth from a cat beast that attacked my village. It was a mighty cat beast. It was terrific. It had 6 legs. It had tentacles with spikes. It was horrendous. And the worst thing of it all is our archers would take shots at it, and the beast, it was like it was never there. The shots would ring true, but it wouldn't hit the beast at all.
That is an interesting story. Yes.
I was lucky. I took my lucky axe and I'll heft up this gigantic axe, which now looks appropriately sized, now that you can see me at my 8-foot tall height. I took up my axe and old gods be praised, I struck it down. And I kept these.
Oh, now that is a fascinating tale. Look at these. And she's like rolling the tooth around in her hand,
kind of marveling at it and looking at you and looking at it and looking at you. He goes, yes, these will do. Okay. In exchange, I will tell you what I know of the place, she says. The ruins you seek were once a forest shrine dedicated to a being now called the Raven Queen. The Raven Queen, you see, was once an elven sorceress who wished to end a war between two of the elven pantheon that were fighting. She failed and lost herself to madness, and now resides in a realm of shadow collecting memories. The shrine you wish to visit was once dedicated to her before her fall. The ruins, they say, are still guarded by memories that she had gathered that take the form of ghosts. So beware. The undead you might encounter there can dig inside your head like a millipede. Because the ruins have a unique spiritual resonance with the Raven Queen, and as she collects memories, memories are bound to that place. So if you are clever enough, and she kind of points at Anthemina at this point, and are able to you may be able to dispel the ghostly memories by damaging what wards you can find that contain them here on the material plane, preventing them from whisking away to the plane of shadow. Because, I know quite a bit about millipedes, particularly of the mind variety, and I tell you, if I give you this... And she reaches into her robe and pulls out a strange trinket made out of rabbit sinew, little nettles, clay, mixed with some sort of fluid, phlegmatic-looking fluid, let's say. And she says, wear this, and you will be less vulnerable to those mental millipedes. Yes, you have given me 3 gifts, and I give you 1 in return. So she hands it forward to whoever might be willing to take it, if any. Anybody want to take that?
Wait. Actually, if it's mind things, I'm okay. He's okay.
She looks at Sildaris and Anthemina.
Anthemina will take it.
All right. It looks like a kind of little totem of some sort that perhaps has some enchantment on it. You'd have to study it further. So, she says, but you must be getting on, mustn't you? She glances up at the moon. The storm is coming. Yes, it is. And Calvin, at this point, is a little unsettled, right? He'd been kind of keeping his own counsel as you had all been sharing stories of your past, right? He'd already shared quite a few with you, and they all seemed to focus, you noticed, on endings, on absences, on the sadness that dominates his life now. And he's been kind of morose and quiet since sharing those tales. But at this, when she makes that observation, he looks up and expresses concern again. Oh, yes,
we should get going. That's right. We don't have very long.
Yes, you should. So at this point, Calvin kind of pulls himself up and says, please.
Please, let us go. Thank you very much, my dear. It was lovely meeting you.
And she just nods and smiles. And then unless there's anything else you'd like to do at this location, she leads you on, or he leads on.
We will go. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'll a little bit taller looking, but I'll still extend my arm for Calvin to take. And then Anthemina.
I was going to say, let me jump in here and say that Calvin, when you transformed, was absolutely astounded. Right?
Oh, my word, have you been that big boy all along? I knew you were... What? I've heard of your kind. A tale one of my neighbors told. But I've never seen one like you. Fascinating.
I'll lean down and say, it likely was a trick of the light, and then give a wink.
Yes, I bet it was. These old eyes are weak, you know.
Anyway, I know that you'd like to spend more time here with your love interest, but we have places we got to go.
So at this, Agatha cackles. And Calvin looks uncomfortable and confused and says,
Yes, we must go, yes.
You can come back anytime. As you leave the wood, or the clearing.
Anthemina will be much more polite and just bow to the older woman and say, "Thank you for giving us this brief respite. We may ask for such another entreat if we happen upon this way on our way back."
She nods and says,
Yes, I don't expect we'll meet again soon, but you never know. I'll always be keeping your stories close at hand.
Do you mean that we're going to die here?
Oh,
See you in the afterlife?
I don't plan to spend much time there anytime soon. We'll see what the future holds for you. I don't like to share secrets.
and then she kind of walks back into this little hut. You head further into the woods, and not that long from there now, you arrive.
Before we arrive, I definitely want to put the necklace, my charm,
Yes.
which I would have very politely worn, even though it smells awful, probably. I'll put it on Calvin, so that if there's any protection that comes from it, that Calvin receives it, and I'll just deal with whatever risks come to me.
Okay.
Wait, question, did we each get a charm?
Actually,
Or is there only the one?
well,
No.
let me think. He said.
I know I wrote it, but I'm like...
Yeah, it says she made a primal trinket, so I just assumed there was just the one.
I'll ask then. If it's just the one, I will ask if we can let Calvin wear it.
I'm fine with that.
So Calvin doesn't seem to mind. He's like,
I can barely smell anything anymore. Those cake I made you, I taste like ash in my mouth. So very well, I'll wear this. It's no more ridiculous than an old man searching for a fountain of youth, I suppose.
all right, so you arrive at the ruins. Let me describe them. I'll then put us on a map, and then I think maybe we'll take a short break before some things happen at that point. All right, so you arrive at the ruins. There's the vegetation gradually thins, so that you can now see and move about freely. Before, it was like, hacking your way through thick underbrush and pushing through branches and climbing over deadfalls or lifting Calvin or whatnot. Finally, the storm winds are picking up, and they've dispersed whatever fog remains. But in fact, the winds are so big, so strong now that they're whipping through the trees and howling through the branches. It's actually kind of hard to hear. And those of you that with rain, like if you're shooting an arrow, it might be a little dicey in this sort of wind. There's a harvest moon overhead that is providing some dim light, because as you arrive, there's a clearing and the light is able to shine in. It is definitely night, and you can see the storms is almost here, but it's not. It hasn't arrived. It has not arrived yet, and it won't for a little bit longer. You come to. Let me move us to the map. Whoops, wrong button. Boop 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 boop. Okay. So you might have to zoom. You're down in the bottom right. Let me go ahead and ping you down there. Whoops. There we go. All right. So I didn't put Calvin out here. Let's call that Calvin. All right. So I forgot to make a token for our friend Calvin, but so he's behind you, and you arrive in this glen. And this location is there's a circle of standing stones, and beyond you see a shimmering pool and the harvest moonlight. The moonlight is dancing across the water in a kind of almost it's a magical sort of way, unnaturally. The wind is quite strong, but the pool seems strangely unaffected, only having the mildest ripples across it. But the moonlight is just sparkling across its surface. And Calvin points and says, "There, that is it, just as he described." However, among the standing stones move some figures. Okay. Let me, whoops. They look like this. Let me show you. Is that the right, did I do the right one? Oh, get out of here. There it is. Okay. Bink. So the beings that move look humanoid in shape, but they seem to be made of entirely kind of tangible shadow. 3 or 4 of them swirling around among the standing stones. And as you enter, they seem to gravitate in your direction. So why don't we go ahead and roll initiative, and then we'll take that quick break.
Okay, and I have to be clicked onto my
Yes.
token when I roll initiative.
So
that's
please
it.
click on the token, correct.
Yeah, 4.
Baller. All right, let's see here. 1, 2.
Okay. Oh, that's why it's not working. Oh my.
Ooh.
Wow.
Which one did I skip?
Wow.
I mean, Ancient Glen, what could possibly go wrong here? I mean, why would we be alert to danger?
Wow. Awesome.
The fact that the highest initiative is an 11.
Well, I was being slow. I hadn't gotten to my dice yet because I realized I hadn't been clicking on tokens.
The highest is, no, it's a 15, and it's not us.
All right, so we've got 4 shadows going in a row, and then Anthamina. All right, that'll be fun. All right, the good news is they're a good distance away from you, so all they're going to do is move. All right, so at this point, we have a swarm of shadows swirling around, menacing our heroes in this circle of standing stones that serves as the remnants of some ancient temple to the deity that later became the Raven Queen. And beyond lies a pool said to serve as a fountain of youth that Calvin has brought you all to. So before we begin combat, let's take a quick breather. We will take a break for about 10 minutes, and we will be right back, everybody. All right?
So worried.
Excellent.
All right, and we're back. Hi, I'm Eugene Marshall. This is Sigil Spotlight. Once again, we are a diverse community of tabletop industry creators spotlighting each other's work. And today, we're featuring From Every Winter Spring, A Tale of Rebirth and Rejuvenation, a D&D 5th edition adventure by Connor Self, featured in the community-created content program, and soon to be played at Maydays Tenday, link below. So definitely check that out. In addition to Connor, who's playing Sildaris, we've got Vic, who's playing Dirk, and Ish, who's playing Anthamina. So our intrepid heroes, Anthamina, Dirk, and let me go ahead and switch to our PC, our character sheet, so everybody can see the character names. All right, Anthamina, Dirk, and Sildaris have delivered Calvin Shepherd, an elderly human, to his location. He had hired the 3 brave adventurers to help him get to this ancient elven religious site. Now, he didn't know very much about it, Calvin. Only he had heard that under the light of the harvest moon, which is shining above them tonight, there is a fountain of youth here. And he, being an elderly man with some regrets and sadness, was hoping that regaining his youth would be the thing he needed to find happiness in his life. And so our crew has brought him here. On the way, however, they ran into an unusual person named Agatha, and she traded lore about this place in exchange for objects from each of the three that was attached to a story. They each shared their stories with their objects and learned that this is no anonymous elven religious site. It was, in fact, a point of worship to the being that became the Raven Queen. And the Raven Queen, Agatha explained, gathers memories. And this place has that sort of attraction to it. So there are memories alive here. Indeed, some of them turned malevolent and, as we see, have become shadows of the beings represented in these memories. And now they threaten our intrepid heroes as they approach the fairy ring of the Circle of Standing Stones, beyond which lies the magical pool. Above, the harvest moon shines down, but very close is a huge thunderhead, storm blowing in, and in a matter of less than an hour, maybe even minutes, that storm will roll in and block the harvest moonlight, and robbing the pool of its magic and Calvin of his chance of regaining youth. So we are now in initiative. We have combat about to begin because our friends have arrived and these shadows have sensed them. And the friends are apparently caught off guard, and the shadows move first. Almost all of them, in fact. So I'm just going to go ahead, and they turn and see our brave heroes and swarm towards them. So let me go ahead and just eyeball some distances here. So we've got, what is the shadows move? 40. Okay. That's right there. Okay, that guy can't. It looks like only one of them can get into range. I want to make sure I'm not cheating here. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Dirk. All right. The others are going to use their action to move, to dash. Okay, this one might not even be able to make it in that distance. So they can move 40 feet. Each of these squares are 5 feet. So to get... Okay, this one can get there. Yeah, it looks like all of them except the furthest one can. Just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to punish you guys for arriving, for rolling so poorly. This one's only going to get to about here. All right, so we've got shadows. Let me zoom in so I'm not looking at this whole map, and so that our friends at home can see what's going on here. The shadows have come swarming around you. Only one of them is going to get to swing at Dirk. And then it'll be Anthemina's turn. I went ahead and... Oh, wait a minute. Which one did I not... Okay, this one isn't here yet. My bad. Let's pull that one back. Hold on for just a moment. There's been a mistake. There's a little token error. All right, fixed. All right, so that shadow hasn't moved yet. My bad. All right, so one shadow comes... these things they look like humanoid-shaped beings, right? But they're made of substantial shadow. They don't really have legs. They just kind of hover, and these arms and this roughly shoulder and head sort of shape come swirling towards you as the wind howls around you and the storm comes blowing in. Now, here's what's interesting, is that these creatures... These are not normal shadows. So, Dirk, I would like you to tell me... There's someone in your past... Dirk, I'm going to ask all of you of this, so think about this, that knows something, that is somebody in your past who has died, and that person knew a secret about you that only they and you know. What might that be? Because that's what this shadow whispers to you as it attacks.
You got your creator killed.
All right, so...
Dirk, you're the ones who killed your creator.
And then this hand stretches out and tries to touch you with its necrotic energies, but they ebb and flow over you, the wind catching them, and they blow away as this kind of shadowy, misty hand stretches out at you, and it hisses and whispers. The rest of the shadows come swarming up as well, and Anthemina, Sildaris, you begin to recognize, it looks like the three in front of you, the one in front of you, Sildaris, and the one in front of you, Anthemina, also begin to resemble people out of your past. But before the one in front of you can fully manifest, Anthemina, what would you like to do?
Anthemina will clinically draw out a rather large vial, unstop it, and then splash it at the two creatures right in front of her.
All right. That sounds like acid splash.
That is, in fact, acid splash. Let me see if this does it or not. Okay, yes.
It did.
Not terribly well, but it does target two creatures.
All right.
They do need to make a dex saving throw, DC 14.
All right, so this is the one on the left and then the one on the right. And one makes it, one doesn't. So this one, this acid, so you pull out this vial and stop it, and this caustic smell strikes everybody's nose as you throw it, its contents at these creatures. And some of it kind of passes through their form, but some of it, it's as though it hits an object and sizzles. And so this creature, though you get the impression that a lot of the acid didn't have as strong an effect as you would have liked, right? As though the shadow, being not fully substantial, is naturally resistant, one might say, to such attacks.
Gotcha.
And the final shadow does continue his or its travel and arrives in everybody's faces. Sildaris, you are up. Tell me, what does the shadow look like that's in front of you, and what might they whisper from your past?
So, Sildaris, unfortunately, is an innocent. And the terrible secrets from Sildaris' past that would fill Sildaris with insane shame are things that people are like, what's the big deal? The shadow whispers, "You used to steal my strawberries."
Yes. So this is
which mortifies Sildaris.
Yeah, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's Old Man Withers. He knows. He knows. Okay, so what would you like to do to the shadow that seems to have... You're not... Yeah, one thing that's unclear to you is this the ghost of Old Man Withers? Is this just the living memory of Old Man Withers, warped by the Raven Queen's magic? It doesn't look like Old Man Withers, really. It just seems to know something it shouldn't.
And I'm not the I am sadly not the person to know. So, like, that might be a good question for Anthemina to answer when we have time to wax philosophical. But right now, these things are trying to murderate us because I ate strawberries as a child. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn back to Calvin. I'm going to say, Calvin, go! Stay back! I'll make sure that I'm standing sort of in the way of them. So I'll swap the hands on my torch, draw my trusty axe as part of my move action. And then I think the best move in this situation, I'm going to stand tall and I'm just going to swing at the one closest to me. And hopefully provide that human wall to keep Calvin safe. And let's see how this works. I don't know if it's going to go well. Never attacked a memory before. $15.
All right, so you hit the memory. And your axe cuts into this kind of, it's almost like cutting into a fabric, but as you cut, it immediately kind of reforms around your blade as your blade passes through this strange stuff. It doesn't look like, you're a woodsman. You've chopped many times with this axe. This feels different, as though you're chopping water. Less effective than you would have liked it to be.
All right. So this, as a bonus action, I'm going to turn to the trees and I'm going to say, if you're listening, we could really use your help right now. And summon the spirit of a tree in roughly this location.
Okay. Tell me about this summoning. How does this work? What is this?
It appears to be a dryad made of a shimmering green energy that looks weird under the harvest moon. So it probably is, the leaves would be reddish in color because it's autumn. Look a little bit drier than it might look in the spring. And I will link the spell for you. Hopefully that takes. I'm trying to click on it, so I don't know if it's going to work and show. I'm having a hard time with it. So it's a healing spirit.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Oh.
All right, that makes sense. All right, so this is here now. I will. Let's make it. Yeah, I'll make a little. It's a 5-foot little aura, if I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. So, spirit that isn't a 5-foot cube. Yep.
Boink. Oh, that's too big, but you get the idea. So there's this little green light hovering around this dryad that is washing over Anthamina and Dirk's kind of back, and it's rather warm, pleasant feeling. The scent of fresh fallen leaves in the autumn strikes your nose. All right. So, Dirk, you've got nature at your back and the memory and death before you. This creature knows things it ought not, and it's beginning to resemble just a hair your creator.
Okay, so Dirk, on the one hand, Dirk was like, ha, you didn't do anything to me when it reached out to it. But on the other hand, he's also like kind of shaken up at the sound of you killed your creator. Like, no one else is supposed to know that. So what is gonna happen? Okay, I'm gonna save that. Okay, so I'm going to take a step back. I will take the attack of opportunity.
All right, you'll take it from 2. Is that all right?
Yes,
All
I
right.
will accept it.
Oh, wow.
Either one of them hit.
Yeah, both misses. So as you move back in the wind, these creatures kind of buffeted around, reach at you, but deftly.
Okay, bonus action, spiritual weapon,
Okay.
and it'll look like a mace.
Mace, I can do that.
With that bonus action, I can attack, and I want the mace to be like to be where I was standing previously.
All right, I can do that.
Spiritual weapon, so it's 20 plus 3.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a hit. And
Yes.
it is, remind me, it's force damage, isn't that right?
Yes.
All right. So which one are you going to hit? There's 2 here.
The one that said the thing to me.
Okay, so that's the one that's directly north of you. That's this one. All right, so that's a hit for 10. Wow, all right.
10? And, okay. I think I'm doing this right. I don't play Spellcaster often, so I did a bonus action,
Spell, yeah.
which is a first level spell. Can I use my action for a cantrip?
Yes. Yes, you
Okay,
may.
cool. Then the next thing I'm going to do is Sacred Flame
Yep.
on the same one. So it needs to
Alright.
make a dexterity saving throw DC 13.
All right, so you'll be able to move that mace around now if you want. So if you choose to move it, you can do that. Okay, so this is a Dex saving throw, DC 13. Let's see how
Yeah.
it does.
Come on, fail.
Oh, he rolled a 17. So
Okay,
the
fine.
mace, the spiritual, this like spectral glowing mace. So tell me, it's a mace, but you're a grave cleric. Is it like glowing bright, or does it like look pale and sickly like death, or what do you think?
I think it looks pale and sickly like death.
Excellent. So this kind of like this pale, almost moonlit, shadowy mace appears and strikes at this shadow and hits. And you could tell this creature is buffeted back by the blow, but your divine radiance that descends upon it, the blow has pushed it back, and it just kind of shimmers around the mace, but doesn't seem to have any further effect. At this point, Calvin, taking Sildaris' instruction, flees and kind of cowers back here behind a tree stump, like the trunk of a tree. He's like, oh my. The shadows surge forward. This one, Anthamina, what is the shadow in front of you here? So I'm talking about this shadow here. The one kind of northwest from you. What is it? What secret does it know? A secret that only you and the dead know.
Anthamina had a brother. And her brother was a few years older than her. And he had actually, up until that point, Anthamina really had no ambitions. But he had actually been killed by a local gang of criminals. And that was the one thing, not so much that he is dead, but that she was there for his last moments, and he asked her to track down and kill the criminals. She hasn't done that. That was denied to her when she was denied getting into the watch.
So the shadow says,
why haven't you avenged me like you promised?
And it reaches out to try to touch you with its sickly hand. I think that might hit for
Yes, it does.
8 necrotic damage. And then, your strength is reduced by 4 points.
Ooh, okay.
So what your strength was 9. Your strength is now 5. You really don't want it to hit 0. So you feel just noticeably weak and sapped of energy. You don't think you'll be like punching anyone successfully soon. That shadow has acted. The one facing Sildaris, and correct me if I'm wrong, Healing Spirit goes at the beginning of your turn, I believe, Sildaris. Does that sound right?
So what happens is on anybody's turn,
on their turn,
they can move into its space,
okay,
and receive the benefit of the healing.
Okay.
And I can choose to move it on my turn.
That's what it is. Okay. So
and I think it's going to move into somebody's space. I'm not naming names, Anthony, but
okay.
I think it's going to be on my turn.
I just wanted to double check. I couldn't remember the timing. All right, so that's not happening right this minute. So Sildaris, the shadow in front of you, the one that Old Man Withers reaches forward, and he's beginning to resemble Old Man Withers as well. Puts his spectral hand, and it just goes right through your chest, and you feel it suck life right out of you as his hand withdraws, and you take 9 necrotic damage. And your strength is reduced by 4 as well. Oh my! So that hurts. So that's like a -2 to hit and for damage compared to your normal strength attacks. And he says, the voice, now it looks and it's almost as though as it reaches its hand into you and sucks the life out of you, it kind of regains some semblance of Old Man Withers now, right? So the skin, like you begin to see the shape of the face, and it looks more like Old Man Withers, as though it's feeding on your memories of Old Man Withers too. And here it is before you, Old Man Withers, angry that you took his strawberries. This shadow moves to the south and goes after Dirk. Whoops, wrong button. So this shadow says, I will get revenge for you killing me. But it misses. Its shadowy hand again, unable to find purchase on your constructed form. The shadow in the back finally gets its turn, and it is going to 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. It's going to come around here and be torn, whether it should go after Calvin or the others. I think it's going to go after Dirk first, at least. This one again misses. Dirk has got the luck of the the Warforged here, seems to resemble a woman, a middle-aged woman that you don't recognize. Anthamina, what would you like to do? So you've been badly injured by this shadow.
And I'm going to look and say, Anthamina, the ancient woman told you to look for the runes. Look for the bindings.
That's a good point. So Anthamina will hopefully disengage.
Okay.
And, she'll actually dip into the
Healing spirit.
The healing spirit. And then go, so that was 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. To try and get a little bit ahead and hopefully start looking. And then technically, okay, no, she used disengage, so she couldn't
Right.
she couldn't dash.
So
that will be the extent.
Go ahead and make a perception check. And since if the DC is not high, there's really not very many places to look.
Yeah.
Yes. The standing stones, clearly, are the only thing around here that could contain etched runes, right? Unless somebody carved it in the side of a tree. You get 1 hit point back. And you, although did not regain your strength just yet, you see, in fact, runes carved on the 4 stones in the inside of the circle, right? You can kind of see them from here.
Excellent.
One shadow here is no longer in conflict with anybody. It is badly injured, so it's going to move around the dry. Oh, no, it can't do that. It'll come around this side. Dirk has been still untouched. So this creature comes up. It looks like oh, there it goes. Not the 24, just the 23. So this creature looks like it's beginning to look a little bit like Anthamina, but it's not Anthamina. It's probably someone related to Anthamina. And the hand reaches forward, and again, you weren't expecting this creature to come swirling around. You were on guard already by 2. Grabs hold of your shoulder, and you just feel, your kind of warforged internal power source drained significantly. So you take 10 necrotic damage. And you also, my goodness, that's 3 4s in a row, lose 4 points off of your strength as well. Sildaris, there are shadows here. What would you like to do? And they look like Old Man Withers and Anthamina's brother and someone talking to, muttering to Dirk about something you don't quite hear or understand. One of them looks like an older woman that you now hear Calvin saying, that looks like my Sarah. That can't be her. Right. What would you like to do?
Okay. So one of them looks like Sarah.
Yes. One of the ones that's over by Dirk looks a little... Well, you don't know that. You just hear Calvin say that. One of them looks like a middle-aged woman. And then Calvin says something about, that can't be my Sarah.
Okay. I'm going to look at that one and scream at it, "Hey, ugly, over here." And I'm going to brandish my axe and just wave it to get its attention.
Okay.
I'm going to use my action to dodge.
Okay.
And hopefully try to buy Anthamina some time.
All right.
To do whatever Anthamina's got to do. And I want to make sure that I am staying in the way. I need to stay in the way.
All right. You want to pivot around a little bit?
Yeah. I will move to here. And I will move the healing spirit. I can move it through me.
Yes.
And back down to Dirk.
Okay.
So I will take a little bit of healing. That's a bonus action to do.
Yep.
Okay. I'll take my 5 hit points back. And hopefully attacking me with disadvantage is enough to buy another round or 2 or 10 or however long it takes for Anthamina to do what she's got to do.
And
she's
you pass it
capable out of all this.
You pass it through Dirk too?
I'm passing it into Dirk's square so
Okay.
that Dirk can take benefit on Dirk's turn.
Okay.
On my turn. Well, on my turn, I'll add 2 hit points.
Yeah, your turn's next. So.
Oh.
All right, so you kind of move into a defensive position, Sildaris, and concentrating on the spell, which I forgot. You should go ahead and roll a concentration check from that shadow attack.
Okay.
Because it did do...
DC 10?
Yep. There you go. No problem there. And all right, so you move this kind of like spectral dryad that looks, kind of translucent, floats a little bit over towards Dirk and rests a hand on Dirk's shoulder, and this kind of natural energy infuses. And this is just after Sildaris has kind of moved through that space, and the dryad smiles briefly at Sildaris before moving to Dirk. But then you drop into this defensive position, ready to take on whatever happens. Dirk, you feel this warmth pass over you. You gain 2 hit points back.
That spell.
Yeah, there are some shadows in front of you. Go ahead real quick, Sildaris. Make an intimidation check. Let's see how effective you are in distracting one of the shadows that's currently harrying Dirk, but was starting to look towards Calvin.
I'm not going to lie. Sildaris is the least intimidating thing ever. How's that look?
I mean, that's good enough to get the creature's attention, right? So, this living memory turns and begins to change form as though it's no longer interested in being Sarah and seems to be interested in heading in your direction. We'll see what it does on its turn. Dirk, you've got shadows here, 2 of which seem intent on you. What would you like to do? One of which is badly injured. What would you like to do?
Okay, I'm bonus action, spiritual weapon, use it to attack the badly injured one.
Okay, that's the one right here and to your left. But go ahead, take a whack. So the magic number is 12. That hits.
Okay, that hits.
Go ahead and do damage. 1d8, I believe, plus your wisdom modifier. All right, so, and this is force damage, so it is... What would you like to describe? Destroying this living memory that had been harassing you, pretending to be your creator?
Yeah, it cracks, like the mace comes down out of the air because it's floating up in the air, and it hits it in the face, and then the memory and then the shadow kind of freezes and like fractures like broken glass before like just dissipating.
Nice. All right. So that which pretended to be... Oh, yes? More?
Yes. Action. Turn undead.
Oh, very nice. Okay. So they need to make... What's your DC 13?
Yes. They need to make
Wisdom saving throw.
Yes, it is a wisdom saving throw.
All right. Oh, I had forgotten for them to take their hide action. All right. They were busy being mean to you. They wouldn't want to hide. All right. So here we go. I'm going to start. I'll go clockwise from the top, the one at the north, directly north. Here we go. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. All 4 of them failed.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So what does it look like when you call on whatever your deity is? What does this look like?
I shout out, Kalimvor, give me strength! And I raise my actual mace. And then, like, the mace itself, like, my own mace is, like, standard kind of, iron or steel mace, but it starts to glow the same color that my, like, spiritual weapon mace is, and there's just, like a pulse wave that comes out of me in that same color, and then all the creatures just blast through everybody, but only affects the shadows.
Nice.
The memories.
So, Calvin is startled by all of this, but, he's, trying to stay safe. But the shadows all immediately, it's like that scene when the tower falls in Return of the King. All of a sudden, they've lost their spirit, and and they immediately turn. They all drop the forms that they had been presenting to you, trying to capture you, the memories that they had conjured forth from the dead, and they all flee. In fact, they all flee 80 feet away, so quite far.
And I shout out to my companions, don't hit them, or it'll stop working.
All right, so they all flee quite far, and will continue to flee for a minute.
In rounds.
Yeah, and so they're going to get 800 feet away, which also gives you time to address the rune issue, because that would take a little while. So that really changed the dynamic of the battle. The shadows were having their way with you, and I was rolling really well for them, and so... But the power of Kelemvor compels them to flee.
The new gods are show-offs.
New gods, I love it.
Yeah, as this kind of like deathly light kind of billows out from Dirk. It's too much for the shadows. So, all right, well, at this time, it's Anthemina's turn. I mean, we'll keep the semblance of initiative for now, but I think we all know that's probably, combat's probably over. So, Anthemina, go ahead and describe what it looks like when you, tell me more about these runes.
Anthemina will walk up to the standing stones and inspect the runes, which I will presume are just simply carved into the rock, potentially colored in by some kind of pigment or even some magical color that is due to glow. And Anthemina will just take one of her instruments for measuring. Like one of them is going to be like that little kind of size measuring thing that has like the little claws on it.
Yeah.
And she'll do kind of one of those first. She'll inspect it with a magnifying glass, and then she'll kind of brush something into a vial for no discernible reason other than her. But that's her inspecting the runes. Is there anything I need to do to interact with them?
Yeah. Go ahead and make an Arcana check to see, how well you can identify the best way to disrupt these wards. All right. That is good. With the guidance that Agatha had given you, you're able to identify that these runes are actually a ward that keeps the shadows in the material plane. So in other words, by damaging them, the shadows actually naturally return to where they belong, which is beyond the portal to the plane of shadow that is kind of available just in this special situation under the light of the harvest moon. Because remember, as Calvin suggested, this place might not even be here, or if it is here, it cannot be found except when the harvest moon shines. So
no. Do I have any indication of if they were kept here for like a good purpose? Am I going to disrupt some kind of balance somewhere if I disrupt these runes?
Go ahead. Let's do a religion check for that one. Excuse me.
All right. Religion is
23. So you'd maybe been vaguely familiar with the Raven Queen. It's not a being that you yourself worship, but it is not. It gathers memories, right? This creature, the Raven Queen, and these undead are actually just dying memories given form, serving the Raven Queen, and their natural place, in fact, is in the plane of shadow with her. So you're not entirely sure why there would be wards keeping them out, but you do remember that Agatha and Calvin, Agatha said, and Calvin had suggested that this used to be a shrine that worshipped the being that became the Raven Queen. And so this might not actually serve the Raven Queen at all. It might be just kind of like a byproduct of her history. And so you think that by disrupting the runes, these shadows will naturally return to where they belong with her, and in fact would not disrupt any natural phenomenon at all. Almost the opposite.
Gotcha. Yeah, so anything that I can do to mess them up, I'll take a knife and deface them or what have you.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot. The stone is old and weathered, filled in with moss in places, but with a few good, a round or two of carving, and there's this kind of popping sound in everyone's ears. And the shadows, you can see them off in the distance through the trees in a couple places, dissolve and dissipate into nothing. And at that point, the glen falls silent. The whispering susurrations of these shadows that you could hear actually all around you ends. And you find yourself in the circle of standing stones with the pool beyond. And so Calvin kind of trepidatiously emerges. Is it safe? And you look up and the clouds are right about to get to the moon. So you have minutes at this point.
And he says, I should go to the pool. It waits.
So he's going to go to the pool unless somebody tries to stop him or something. He walks past the circle of stones over to the edge and peers in.
I'm gonna follow behind him.
I was going to ask, what would the rest of you like to do? So Sildaris and Dirk are accompanying Calvin. What about you, Anthamina?
Yeah, we're definitely heading that way.
Okay. So the healing dryad is gone. All right. As the spiritual weapon, I think, is a 1 minute as well. So, all right. So let me describe what happened. So Calvin approaches the pool, and again, there's this shimmering of moonlight upon its surface, and it's this perfect reflection. And as you look down, you see the harvest moon kind of shining up at you. And then, so Calvin gets down on his knees, leans forward, and there's this kind of eerie light coming from the pool. And he touches the water with his finger, and then glowing motes of energy begin to float up from the water. Above you, you hear the crash of thunder and the flash of lightning in the sky, but here at the pool, little yellow dots float up. And Calvin leans forward and looks, and as you lean forward and look, you see that each one expands enough so that you can see that within each one is a little scene playing out, and you recognize that these, you just know intuitively, these are memories. Looking over Calvin's shoulder, you see a young woman with flowers in her hair, smiling. You see a small child with features that look very much like the young woman. And he falls in the grass and scrapes his knee, a tear in his eye. Calvin is there to pick this boy up and hug him close to himself. You see the birth of the child, an earlier memory, the building of a home. You see a humble family meal, the woman, young Calvin, and this boy laughing over food. You see Calvin putting the boy to bed at night, singing a song, and the boy falling happily and safely to sleep. You see the boy now older, and the woman, his mother, Calvin's wife, happily speaking to him as they play a game at the table. And Calvin comes in, and there's laughter and love and warmth and family. And you hear Calvin say, I
had forgotten all these things.
Tears now running down his eyes, his cheeks.
How could I have forgotten? Look at this, look at how magical.
And he settles down, and the lights hover around him as these memories are brought back. Little moments, just the day-to-day events of life that one forgets as the decades pass, refreshed and renewed in his memory. Above, the harvest moon disappears behind the clouds. Lightning crashes once more, and rain begins to fall. The rain now falling on him, intermingling with his tears. He looks down in the pool longingly for a few more minutes and then asks to be helped up. And he stands up a little bit straighter. He says, his voice speaking with conviction, he says, I have, I have what I came for. Thank you. And he looks the same. He does not look any younger. But there's something about him. Seeing the images in the pool, remembering events from his earlier days, the routine occurrences he had long forgotten, the small things that made his life worth living, have been renewed and refreshed. And now he knows that he has lived a good life. And it was all worth it. On the soggy walk back to Elventree, he shares stories about those memories, about the girl he loved, Sarah, who later became his wife. He talks of his son, Ebens, who later moved to the farm, and how proud he is, and always was, of this boy. He tells them of the memory and of vitality of both his son, but also himself. And you can see younger Calvin coming out again through these stories, living his life again in these memories. He's a changed man, a revitalized man. as a result of these experiences. Not in body, but in spirit. And as you return to Elventree, you arrive at his humble cottage, and he turns to you and smiles warmly, and he says, "Thank you, friends. You've given me a great gift today. Please, allow me to repay you in whatever way I can." And he heads into his home and comes out with a sack of coin for each of you, and the last of the cake that he had made the day before, and smiles, and he says, he invites you in, and he spends time lingering at his mantle, looking at the knickknacks formerly covered in dust, reminiscing again. And at that point, your duties with him are over. He wishes you well. Is there anything else you'd like to say or ask or do?
I actually want to ask Sildaris something. If he's eating cake, because I'm eating some of that last piece of cake.
You'll have to arm wrestle me for it, Dirk.
We can't share. We can't share.
We can share.
Okay.
And I'll give Dirk a wink.
Listen, that lady in the forest, is she gonna do something to us with our items and our stories? Because that felt very ominous.
I'm just gonna eat the cake. I don't even want to go down that road.
Anthemina says, "I suppose it depends on how those memories matter to you. I have memories of something that was a bother while I was having to purchase some supplies. I don't know if that can bring me any harm. I hope that you had something similarly trifling that you gave over. That was my intention, anyhow."
It was just a funny story, but it was my first. So,
This cake is good.
And I'm glaring at Sildaris because he won't answer my question. Big boy won't answer me.
This cake is really good. You should really have more. I kind of do taste the fox. I do.
Delicious.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Calvin thanks you once again, and you go on your way. And now, little epilogue. Fast forward. You adventure with your friends, with each other, with some of your other friends who aren't present tonight. And a year or so later, you return to Elventree and learn that actually Calvin had died peacefully in the spring of the next year, surrounded by the village elders, his friends. And you learn that he left his home to you all in his will. And as you enter it, once to this quaint country home, you see that the dusty knickknacks from the mantle are gone, replaced with fresh, hand-carved wood carvings of a beautiful woman reunited with a young man holding a small child. So this, you can see, is the representation of, where he thinks he's ending up, right? And that, you now have a quaint country home in Elventree, should you wish to retire after your life of adventuring.
This is a perfect place to be my base of operations.
And now you have, it's not quite a bat cave, but the quaint country home of the grave cleric, Warforged Dirk.
And friends.
And friends, and co. All right, well, that is the end of the adventure. Now, whether Agatha uses the items she gained from you to perform devious acts now that she has a totem, a token from each of you, well, that's something that might have to be discovered in a future story. But that is the end of the adventure. So at this point, I'd like to do what we do every session, which is do the stars and wishes and see what people thought and if there's anything they wanted to highlight or wish for more of next time. Go ahead. How about let's hear from Ish. Would you like to make any suggestions. Whoops. Oh, our things are out of order here. Go
So
ahead.
for highlights, I love this session. Even the combat was laden with excellent flavor and role-playing opportunities. And there was a lot about memories, whether creating new ones or kind of looking back towards the old ones. And that was just strewn all about the entire adventure, which I thought was fantastic. And I wouldn't say that there was a deficit of that here, but I like to have those opportunities of just sprinkling opportunities in other adventures to be able to say, hey, what's a thing from your character's past, or what's something that no one else would know about you, and whether that's revealed or if that's just like a kind of a soliloquy to the audience, if you will. I think those are really cool things that I would love to see. Not like I don't want that dominating things, because that would be selfish, but like a little thing here and there would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to jump in, GM's prerogative, to wish to do the stars. And I would like to star Connor for writing this adventure. Specific for two reasons. One, it was great, well written for exactly the kind of reason you're talking about, Ish, which is it gave the GM, and through the GM, the players, the opportunity to really engage in world building and character development and story. The fact that these creatures are like secrets and memories from your character's pasts is such a great opportunity for a character to reveal and divulge more about them, right? It's so nice to have. I really love when combat, which is it's really what 90% of the mechanics in D&D are about, but I love when that can be infused with narrative purpose and meaning, right? It's not just fight these so that we can get back to the story. This is the story, right? And that's so that just is a sign of a really well-written adventure. Thank you for that. And then I'll share my other one after I give the rest of you a chance to talk. What about you, Vic?
I love the ending. I love that, like, the Fountain of Youth wasn't so much like you get in and you turn into like you're younger and you're in your 20s, and more like you're recapturing all those memories that you forgot as time goes on. So that was really sweet. And I mean, just overall, I really like the adventure and the storytelling aspect of like combat being a part of the role play and the story. I had a lot of fun.
Fantastic. What about you, Connor? I mean, this was your adventure. I don't know what that was like for you.
It was awkward. I try to keep my mouth shut. I try not to say too much. I try not to read back through the adventure before it began. So this is the first time that I've ever had a chance to actually play through one of my adventures while it was being run. I've heard other creators talk about anonymously sitting at tables where people are running an adventure that they wrote, not saying they even wrote it, and just trying to experience it, through the lens of somebody else telling the story that they drafted, and see other players react to it. So it was very interesting. I was totally stressed going into this because I'm so lucky that I'm surrounded by so many amazing creators. You can't help but be like, oh, I really hope they enjoy it, or that they see something of value in it. My stars, I'm not going to and wishes, I'm not going to focus on the story. I'm not going to break down the story like I often would each week. But my stars are going to be Eugene. I was crying in the very end. Like, you wove all of that together in such a meaningful way that I began tearing up. I'm like, oh, great. Now I'm going to cry on stream. Thanks, Eugene. Anybody that knows, anybody that's worked with me, the students at the school where I teach, they've all seen me cry. I'm such an easy crier. And I don't want to get into ugly crying on the stream, but it would have been ugly crying in the best possible way. So thank you for weaving together those little memories in a way that would be meaningful for somebody enjoying the adventure. I also really liked, and this is something that goes back to weeks in the past. This is not our first time. We had last week, we had the week before, and one thing that always comes up, we say, man, we really wish that we had more chances to develop our characters and interact more. develop our characters and interact, develop our characters and interact. And so stars to everybody that sat at this table, and on the fly, you were creating details about your character and enriching your backstory and chatting with each other. And it was, and you know, the people in the audience can't see the little private chat that we're sending back and forth, you know, but we're engaged with each other. And so that would be my biggest star. My wish would be that you know, we've got a few others. I wish that they could have been here too. I would have liked to have seen what their characters would have experienced through all of this, because their characters are just amazing too. There's so many creatives that are on the stream. So that would be my big wish.
Well, I would like to share, so thank you for that. I appreciate those words. And I'd like to share one more star, which is about the adventure again. I mean, I loved, oh no, I have a couple actually, now that I think about it. Let's be fair. I continue to enjoy the apothecary class. I really love that. It's so flavorful, right? It's just, I know exactly what that looks like. You know, I can picture the like tinctures and little vials and mixtures and quick, and then, you know, there's these kind of like alchemical explosions and stuff. That's super cool. And then Dirk is a fantastic character. I want to hear more about Dirk. I want to hear more of Dirk's voice. I want to hear about Dirk, what Dirk thinks everything tastes like. So props to Dirk. And finally, on the adventure, one other thing I wanted to highlight is I have been trying to write adventures like this, and they're hard, and I want to see more adventures that celebrate positive experiences, right? That, I mean, yes, we all have positive experiences when we kill the monster or overcome the obstacle, but it's hard to write an adventure that feels really uplifting, like humanly uplifting, you know, so that the players feel like, I don't know, like they've had a meaningful human experience. And so I really think that's great that you wrote an adventure that can do that. So thank you for that. I too, like describing the like wooden figures at the end, I was like, okay, no, I don't want to cry talking about this. Like, I also, ever since having my own family, can get that way about things like that. So anyway, so thank you for that. I hope everyone at home enjoyed this. I know I did. Is there anything else anyone would like to share, or are we good?
One thing I would like to encourage the audience to consider, and this is just a personal thing, but in the creator community, we see a little bit of this. There are an amazing number of wonderful stories in the Adventurers League canon. But a lot of folks are like, well, I don't play Adventurers League style, so why would I bother downloading or buying these things? So you don't have to run them Adventurers League style to have a meaningful, fun experience. And I want to encourage you to take a look at some of those things out there. Adventurers League adventures often are very inexpensive. They're good for one evening's worth of play, and they often can be springboarded into bigger campaigns. You know, there's content in this that wasn't even touched upon. You know, and the session that we played, things that could springboard you into future adventures and meaningful encounters. So, you know, it's not just a me thing. Consider looking into them and seeing which ones have good reviews, and maybe giving it a try and running it just as a D&D game instead of running it as Adventurers League, because there are some amazing stories there.
Yeah,
from some very talented people.
That's absolutely true. And there's a bunch of them free on Wizards of the Coast's website right now, because they've been making some free for the kind of stay-at-home time. And and when you said cheap, they're like $1 or $2, just at full price many times. They're really cheap on DM's Guild. So, and they're great. I've been running Adventures League stuff for a long time, so, and playing in it. And yeah, they can be a lot of fun. All right. Well, that's a great point to end on. So thanks to Sigil Spotlight, or Sigil Entertainment, I mean. Thanks to my wonderful players. Thanks to Connor for writing this great adventure, to Roll20, to Wizards of the Coast, to the Adventures League. I guess that's it, and we're going to say goodnight.
Night.
night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.